In 2022, Rick Warren stood on the stage of Saddleback Church in Lake Forest and announced a leadership transition that had been planned for years. The church, which had grown into one of the largest megachurches in the United States, was operating with weekly attendance figures that had once exceeded 20,000 across multiple campuses. The organization controlled a network of properties, staff salaries, media production units, and international outreach programs. At the same time, the Southern Baptist Convention was preparing to formally expel Saddleback Church over its decision to appoint a woman as a teaching pastor, a move that violated the denomination's formal doctrinal position. Warren, whose career had been built on broad accessibility and institutional alignment, was now positioned at the center of a structural conflict that threatened his long-standing influence within one of the largest religious networks in the country. His public identity is tied to numbers. Book sales, attendance figures, annual budgets, and distribution metrics define the measurable scope of his work. His 2002 book, The Purpose-Driven Life, sold more than 30 million copies globally within its first decade of release. It was translated into over 85 languages and distributed through church-based campaigns that synchronized weekly sermons with structured reading schedules. The book's revenue stream alone generated tens of millions of dollars in royalties, though he publicly stated that he later reversed those earnings through charitable giving and repaid his church salary. These financial claims were documented through interviews and internal church disclosures, though independent verification of total redirected funds remains limited to his own reporting and affiliated organizations. The contrast between institutional scale and denominational conflict in 2022 reflects a long trajectory that began in a different environment. Rick Warren was born on January 28, 1954, in San Jose. His father was a Baptist minister, and his mother worked as a librarian. The household structure followed a disciplined routine centered around church activity, sermon preparation, and educational advancement. He grew up observing the operational side of ministry, including attendance tracking, donation collection, and pastoral scheduling. These early exposures shaped his later emphasis on systems and replicable growth models. He attended California Baptist University, where he completed an undergraduate degree. During this period, he began developing an interest in church growth theory, a framework that treated religious expansion as a measurable and strategic process rather than a purely spiritual outcome. He later enrolled at Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary, earning a Master of Divinity, and also pursued doctoral studies at Fuller Theological Seminary, where he was exposed to academic discussions about demographic targeting, suburban migration patterns, and communication theory. In the late 1970s, he conducted a survey of residents in Orange County, going door-to-door asking non-churchgoers why they did not attend religious services. The responses were recorded and categorized. Common answers included perceptions that church services were boring, irrelevant, or overly focused on institutional traditions. He used this data as a baseline for constructing a model that emphasized accessibility, contemporary language, and practical messaging. In 1980, Rick Warren founded Saddleback Church. The initial meetings were held in a rented theater space, with attendance starting at a small group level. His early routine involved weekly preparation cycles that combined sermon writing, outreach planning, and logistical coordination. He applied a structured growth model that included targeted invitations, small group development, and incremental expansion of service capacity. Within a few years, attendance increased into the thousands. His approach relied on segmentation. Instead of addressing a general audience, he defined a target profile often described as the unchurched suburban resident. This demographic focus influenced sermon topics, which emphasized personal development, family structure, stress management, and financial discipline. The language used in his messages avoided theological complexity and instead adopted simplified frameworks that could be easily repeated and distributed. By the late 1980s and early 1990s, Saddleback Church had transitioned from temporary venues into permanent facilities. Land acquisition in Orange County required significant financial planning. The church raised funds through capital campaigns that encouraged long-term pledges from members. These campaigns were structured similarly to institutional fundraising drives, with projected timelines, construction phases, and budget allocations. The campus eventually expanded into a multi-building complex that included auditoriums, administrative offices, and educational spaces. Rick Warren's daily schedule during this growth phase followed a consistent pattern. Early mornings were dedicated to writing and study, often beginning before sunrise. Midday hours were allocated to staff meetings and operational oversight, while evenings frequently included speaking engagements or small group interactions. This routine was maintained over decades, with incremental adjustments as the organization expanded. The 1990s marked a transition into broader visibility. He began participating in conferences and publishing materials focused on church growth strategy. These materials were not limited to theological audiences. They were also consumed by organizational leaders interested in scalable systems. His framework presented church expansion as a process that could be replicated across different regions, provided that local demographics were analyzed and messaging was adjusted accordingly. The release of The Purpose-Driven Life in 2002 represented a shift from institutional growth to mass-market influence. Its distribution model relied heavily on church networks, with congregations encouraged to purchase copies in bulk and organize 40-day reading campaigns. This synchronized approach created a measurable spike in sales, contributing to its placement on bestseller lists. The revenue generated from these campaigns was distributed across multiple channels, including publishers, distributors, and his personal royalties. He publicly addressed the financial implications of this success. In multiple interviews, he stated that he stopped taking a salary from Saddleback Church and instead relied on book income. He also claimed to have retroactively donated previous years of salary back to the church. These actions were framed as a response to increased wealth, though detailed financial audits of these claims have not been publicly released in full. Saddleback Church's annual budget grew alongside its membership. By the mid-2000s, the church was managing tens of millions of dollars in yearly expenditures, allocated across staff salaries, facility maintenance, media production, and global outreach programs. He launched the Peace Plan, an initiative designed to address global issues such as poverty, disease, and education, operating through partnerships with local churches in multiple countries. His influence extended into political and cultural spheres. In 2008, he hosted a presidential forum at Saddleback Church, inviting candidates from both major political parties. The event was broadcast to a national audience and positioned him as a figure capable of engaging with political leadership while maintaining a religious platform. This visibility increased his reach but also introduced new layers of scrutiny. The operational structure of Saddleback Church continued to evolve, adopting multi-campus expansion that allowed services to be broadcast across different locations. This model required investment in audio-visual technology, staff training, and centralized content production. His sermons were recorded and distributed across campuses, ensuring consistency in messaging while enabling geographic growth. His communication strategy relied on repetition and clarity. Sermons were structured around key points that could be summarized and shared, with visual aids, outlines, and printed materials reinforcing the message. This approach increased retention among attendees and facilitated the spread of content through informal networks. As the organization grew, internal systems became more complex. Staff hierarchies were established to manage departments including finance, communications, and outreach. Performance metrics, attendance numbers, small group participation, and donation levels were tracked and used to adjust strategies and allocate resources. The scale of Saddleback Church's operations required ongoing financial input. Donations from members formed the primary revenue stream, supplemented by book sales, speaking fees, and external partnerships. His personal income from book royalties remained a significant component of his financial profile, though exact figures varied based on sales cycles and contractual agreements. By the 2010s, he had established a global presence. The purpose-driven model was implemented in churches across different countries, with translations and cultural adaptations. Training materials were distributed through conferences and digital platforms. This expansion increased his reach but also introduced challenges related to consistency and oversight. The early foundations of his career demonstrate a consistent focus on structure, measurement, and scalability. From the initial surveys in Orange County to the global distribution of The Purpose-Driven Life, he applied a systematic approach to growth, generating measurable results including increased attendance, expanded budgets, and widespread recognition. At the same time, reliance on structured growth models created dependencies on continuous expansion. Attendance levels, donation streams, and media reach needed to be maintained to support the organization's scale, and any disruption had the potential to impact the broader system. The events leading up to 2022 cannot be separated from this historical context. His career was built on alignment between message, structure, and audience. The emerging conflicts within the Southern Baptist Convention introduced a variable that did not fit within that framework, and the implications of this shift would become more visible over time. By the mid-2000s, Rick Warren was no longer operating solely as the senior pastor of Saddleback Church. He had transitioned into a hybrid role combining religious leadership with authorship, media distribution, and organizational consulting. This shift altered the financial structure surrounding his work. Revenue was no longer limited to weekly donations but expanded into publishing contracts, international licensing, conference speaking fees, and curriculum distribution tied to the purpose-driven model. The release cycle of The Purpose-Driven Life followed a structured commercial strategy. The publisher, Zondervan, coordinated bulk distribution agreements with churches across the United States, encouraging congregations to purchase large quantities at discounted rates for internal distribution. This approach created immediate volume sales, pushing the book onto national bestseller lists within a compressed time frame. Continuous reprints followed, with total copies sold exceeding 30 million within approximately 10 years. Royalty structures for major publishing contracts typically range between 10% and 15% of the retail price. In his case, the scale of distribution suggests total royalty earnings likely reached tens of millions of dollars over the first decade. He publicly stated that he implemented a reverse tithe, claiming to give away 90% of personal income while retaining 10%, and that he returned approximately 25 years of church salary back to Saddleback Church after the book's success. These figures were presented in interviews and public appearances, though detailed audited financial statements verifying the exact amounts have not been fully released. During this period, the church's internal budget expanded significantly, reaching an estimated $30 million to $40 million annually by the late 2000s. These funds supported a large staff structure, with compensation levels aligned to benchmarks in large non-profit organizations. His personal salary from the church was reported to have been reduced or eliminated, though operational costs associated with his role, travel, security, and coordination, continued to be funded. The financial model depended heavily on consistent weekly giving. Donation patterns were tracked and analyzed, informing budget forecasts and capital planning. Major building projects were funded through multi-year pledge campaigns supported by targeted messaging around long-term impact and growth. His expansion strategy extended beyond physical campuses. The multi-campus model relied on centralized content production, with sermons recorded and distributed across locations. This reduced the need for additional senior pastors while maintaining consistency, though it required ongoing investment in infrastructure and technical staff. Parallel to domestic growth, he launched international initiatives under the Peace Plan, focusing on reconciliation, leadership development, poverty alleviation, healthcare, and education. Implementation relied on partnerships with local churches across multiple regions, with funding drawn from donations and external contributions. While detailed breakdowns were not consistently published, overall expenditures reached multi-million-dollar levels annually. His media presence expanded through television, DVDs, and digital platforms. Online streaming extended reach beyond physical attendance, requiring investment in web infrastructure and content management systems. He also entered the conference circuit, speaking at large-scale events attended by religious and organizational leaders. While specific fees were not consistently disclosed, industry standards suggest earnings ranging from tens of thousands to over $100,000 per engagement. These appearances contributed to overall income and reinforced his position as a thought leader. The financial architecture surrounding his work became layered. At its core was Saddleback Church as a non-profit entity, surrounded by commercial activities including publishing and speaking. Managing the interaction between these layers required maintaining regulatory compliance while maximizing reach, though it also introduced ongoing scrutiny regarding transparency. Criticism increased alongside visibility. Some observers questioned the concentration of influence within a single individual, while others focused on limited financial disclosure. Although the church published general budget figures, detailed expenditure breakdowns and independent audits were not consistently accessible. He responded by emphasizing personal giving and lifestyle choices, stating that he and his family continued to live in the same home purchased in the 1980s and highlighting charitable contributions. However, without comprehensive public records, external verification remained limited. Operational scale required risk management strategies, including insurance coverage and security coordination for large gatherings. These costs became a fixed part of the budget. By the early 2010s, his influence extended into political and diplomatic spaces through advisory roles on global health initiatives. These connections expanded reach but introduced additional scrutiny. Internally, leadership responsibilities were distributed across multiple departments, requiring structured communication and regular evaluation to maintain alignment. Data collection remained central, with weekly tracking of attendance, engagement, and giving informing decision-making. Despite this structure, strain began to appear. Maintaining growth required continuous outreach, while economic fluctuations affected donation patterns. The organization remained stable, but budget adjustments highlighted underlying vulnerabilities. Criticism also targeted theological positioning. His emphasis on accessibility was viewed by some as a dilution of doctrine, while others argued the model prioritized growth metrics over depth. He responded by framing the approach as necessary for broader engagement. The complexity of operations created dependency on leadership continuity. As founder, he remained central to the organization's identity, raising questions about succession. Plans for transition were gradually introduced in the late 2010s, focusing on leadership restructuring and communication to maintain stability. External pressures intensified as debates within the Southern Baptist Convention over gender roles became more pronounced. Saddleback Church's internal decisions, particularly regarding women in teaching roles, placed him in a position that diverged from official doctrine, introducing new instability. The system he built was designed for expansion but proved less adaptable to doctrinal conflict. As tensions increased, stability was tested through shifts in affiliation rather than financial breakdown. In February 2023, the Southern Baptist Convention formally voted to remove Saddleback Church from its membership. The decision centered on the appointment of a woman as a teaching pastor. Although he had already announced a leadership transition, he remained directly involved in the response, appealing the decision and arguing for continued cooperation on other doctrinal and mission-based issues. The appeal was ultimately rejected. The removal marked a structural break. For decades, he had operated within the denomination's network, benefiting from shared resources and institutional alignment. While the loss did not directly impact the church's internal funding, it reduced his influence within that system. His response remained measured, citing historical examples and framing the issue as interpretive rather than foundational. The denomination maintained its position. At the same time, leadership transition moved forward with the installation of Andy Wood and Stacy Wood as co-lead pastors. This aligned with long-term decentralization plans but reinforced separation from the denomination. Operational adjustments followed, including staff restructuring and updated communication strategies. Attendance and retention were closely monitored, with targeted engagement efforts implemented. Financial stability remained dependent on consistent giving. Early indicators suggested stability, though detailed reporting remained limited. His personal income continued to rely on intellectual property, with ongoing royalties from the purpose-driven life-sustaining revenue through global distribution. Public visibility decreased but did not end. He continued participating in selected events and advisory roles, maintaining influence without direct operational control. Criticism persisted, focusing on both structural and ideological concerns, amplified through digital platforms. While no major criminal cases emerged, broader scrutiny of large religious organizations continued. Security and operational requirements remained consistent due to the scale of gatherings. Demographically, the church continued to reflect suburban patterns, with programming focused on practical life issues. Internationally, the purpose-driven model remained active, with systems continuing to operate despite reduced direct involvement. His long-term impact can be measured through book distribution, attendance figures, and model adoption across churches globally. At the same time, separation from the Southern Baptist Convention reduced institutional alignment within that network. Rick Warren's current position is transitional. He is no longer the primary operational leader but remains tied to the organization's identity and strategic direction, with influence now operating through legacy systems and advisory roles. The broader megachurch landscape continues to shift with the rise of digital platforms, altering engagement patterns and introducing new sustainability challenges. His career reflects consistent reliance on structure, measurement, and scalability. These factors enabled expansion but also created dependencies on alignment. When that alignment shifted, limitations in the model became visible. The phrase "things aren't looking good" reflects measurable changes rather than collapse. Reduced institutional alignment, leadership transition, and increased scrutiny. His legacy remains defined by quantifiable outputs, books, systems, and institutional growth. The question moving forward is how these systems will function without centralized control. The final outcomes remain in development. Attendance trends, donation levels, and organizational stability will provide clearer indicators over time. His role in shaping modern evangelical structures is already established. and the current phase represents a period of adjustment as those systems operate under new conditions.